this session is really going to be more of a conversation. I want to be able to answer questions that you may have as you are navigating through imposter syndrome and in learning how to fail forward. It is not something that we are able to do with grace as we would like to. Since I am so far away, I am going to take off my mask because I keep clogging up my glasses and my eyes are tired. So if I can't see y'all, then I don't know what's going on. So this is really going to be kind of a conversational session. I'm going to talk a little bit about the 3 things that I posted about how we fight the good fight, but then we are going to have conversations around it. I think a lot of times at conferences, we don't give ourselves enough time to really grow in the thing that we just talked about. And so we lead with questions, or we lead with wondering, and sometimes you don't want to post on Twitter the question that you have. And I know that we're live streaming. Hey, people at home, it's nice to see y'all. I think some of my ITCs from Arlington are watching virtually. If they're not, there's a text, might be back. So we will try to make sure that one of the norms of this session will be that what is said here stays within us, because this is a hard topic to discuss and to live in and to really push through. So as it says, it's okay to fail forward. It really is. It's not the end of the world, even if you think it is. What you obsessed about today, somebody else has forgotten by next week. I dated this young man in high school a very long time ago, and I did something super embarrassing, like our 4th date. And so his cousin ended up marrying my sister. And one day I asked him if he remembered. He was like, "What?" I was like, "Well, I've been carrying that for a long time. You don't remember." He was like, "Yeah, no, I don't. No, I don't." I was like, "I probably didn't even say anything then." And I was like, "Well, okay." So I'll remember that. You hold on to it longer than anybody else does. Thank you. And when you're a BYO D establishment, you have to deal with whatever technology people bring. So John Maxwell says to fail early, fail often, but always fail forward. It's a cool quote, right? If you believe in it. We all fail early. How many of you have started a new job within the last year and a half? Like, the first day you get to work, you are like, your stomach is in knots because you're excited about what you're gonna be able to do, and you have this plan. Like, I walked in Arlington, I had my 90-day plan laid out. And my boss didn't ask for it, but I had it because I'm a overachiever. And I said, "This is my 90-day plan. This is what I'm gonna do in these 90 days." She was like, "This is great. I've done one of those things and I've been there for 5 months." So I am failing early and often. It is not my mantra. But what I did learn is that in that plan that I had, I was able to always fail forward in the sense that every misstep I made allowed me to understand something a little bit better. So I had to change my mindset that it wasn't necessarily failing, it was really just growing. And we tell our kids, you can fail because you're gonna grow, right? Like when my daughter learned how to ride her bike, I bought her a helmet and knee pads, and I was like, you're gonna learn how to ride this bike, you're gonna fall a couple of times. And she got on her bike, never have ridden a bike before, and just started riding the bike. And I was like, just once I need you to have like an awkward moment. So I was like, "Well, how did you do that?" And she was like, "Well, when I took gymnastics, like they taught us that you suck in your core and that and I'm like, oh, you learned something somewhere else and now you use it against me." So it was easy for her, where she could not succeed in learning how to ride her bike is that all of her brothers and I, when we went to ride, we could all stand up and come up a hill. And she did not have the leg strength to do it. So she would always be at the bottom of the hill waiting for us to come back to get her. And so one day, because I'm a good parent, and we always went up the hill because I knew she wasn't able to do it and I wanted her to struggle just a little bit. I turn around and she's standing on the side of the bike and she's a really good runner. She had the bike, I almost on her hips and she's like, and I'm laughing at her because I'm like, why would you pick the bike up? Why wouldn't you just roll it on its wheels? And she was like, because the wheels are slowing me down. And then I learned something, that sometimes we use crutches and they slow us down more than if we just picked up that burden and ran with it. So, next slide, please. So, remember these, the master of your craft, the VU, the circle of trust. We're gonna talk about the coping strategies that go with these, okay? Because I told you to just be kick-ass and awesome, and I didn't tell you that you were going to skin your knees up and vomit and cry in the bathroom frequently. I left that part out because it was the big speech. But you are, and you should. So, master of your craft. That is an easy one. We are able to get certifications and do all kind of cool things like come to VSTE and ISTE and all this and learn. But what we're not able to do is always take that learning back to our buildings and implement it. Because the people that we support aren't always ready for where we're going, right? So you have all this knowledge, but you're not able to go forward. So the coping strategies that I have for the mastering of your craft is, number one, it's okay if you don't get to own your craft all the time. And I know that as EdTech leaders, we are called on to do a lot of tech work. I was in a board meeting and, well, executive leadership team meeting, and they wanted to use the phone conference system, right? And they were like, hey, you know how to hook it up. And I was like, I do not. I can definitely teach you digital pedagogy, but I'm not gonna be able to tell you how to make a phone call on this. But I'm pretty sure there's a secretary outside who knows how to do this. And so I was stepping outside and I said, excuse me, do you know how to work this thing in here? And she said, yeah, Tech showed me how to do it. So she teaches us all, and they all look at me with this side eye like, she knew how to do, well, yes, because she uses it all the time. I do not use a phone conference system and like video camera. Like I literally have just Teams. That's all y'all get for me. So I have had to learn that my biggest coping strategy is knowing to be like, I don't know. In a previous session, a participant said, sometimes I fudge it. I know how to do something, but I tell a teacher that I don't because it's not in my lane. I use that same coping strategy. I can hook anything up. I am not going to hook it up because that is 2, 8, or 7's job in some instances. Now, if I want to go into a classroom and build relationships with the teacher, I'm going to go to printer. And I'm going to talk about different things with them so that I can cut back and talk about their instruction. Because the last thing a teacher wants to talk to you ever about is their instruction. Because they're the best. We all need to grow. Who are you? In your heels, get out of here. I frequently wear white too, which is a point of contention for teachers, I found out. Because they're like, we work with children and you wear white, and I'm like, stiff arm. Easy, just. I do not stiff arm children, I promise, if anyone in HR listens to because I have never stiff arm a job that's not my own. So, there are a lot of things that I decided to do when I got out of the classroom, and to wear white and high heels was one of 2 of them. So, as you have navigated your systems, what are some things, some questions that you have about owning and mastering your craft. Because I can talk all day, I promise you. It's a skill at this point. Do y'all have, yes, ma'am?
Do you typically align where you focus your craft on the schools or district's goals?
Do I typically align my craft on district and school goals? Yes. I have always been a backwards planner. It has always been beneficial to me. So I take the strategic plan and pull back to what that means for ITCs or for you and me to go forward to. It also makes it easy when I need to do something, I can say it's aligned to this goal. And people can't tell you no when it's aligned to the strategic plan. Because if it's aligned to the strategic plan and we're supposed to do it and it's gonna move us, why would you tell me no? And so then they have to explain that. But you have to be able to explain how it is aligned there. Not every goal that we have as EdTech leaders will align to a strategic plan or a school goal, because a lot of schools are not ready for where we are or where we need to go. I have lots of people. A principal told me, I told her, I was like, I can help with digital pedagogy. And she said, did you make that word up? I was like, the digital or the pedagogy part? She was like, that's not a thing. I was like, it's literally Googleable. Digital, it's my whole job. So trust me, people are not always ready. So your goals do have to be very focused and aligned to that. But that is the biggest way to master your craft. I tell ITCs, typically, you can't get every certification. If you are certified in everything, what's the point of that? If you have a team of people, you have to pick and choose what you're good at. And a lot of times in districts, what we do is we say the ITC is at this school, right? But they're not. They're for everybody. Like the ITCs are for everybody. Because if my team of 10 people, 2 of us know Flipgrid and 2 of us know Google, and 2 of us know Canvas, and then some of us are coaches. When your school needs Google people, we can send those other people over there. So mastering your craft is not always getting all of the things. I love the young lady earlier, she said that she gets certifications like Pokemon cards. I love that idea, because it is cool. It's cool to have all of those things. I mean, I guess I do that with degrees. That I just don't want to pay my student loans, so I just go back to school. So I'll be a forever student. So what other questions do you have about mastering your craft? Are there any in the chat? Okay. So does everybody kind of get that? Yes, sir.
I do. I am starting in a role actually tomorrow. That is very exciting. Yeah, but it is a role that's fairly new in our division, and the person that was in it previously was moved from another position, was only in it for a couple months. There's a lot around this role that still needs defining. So when you talk about mastering your craft, there's a little bit of like, what is the craft of this role and how does it take shape with a new person? I'm just curious if you can speak to what that could or might look like when things are a little bit less defined as to what we mean by craft.
Yes, unfortunately, I have all of my experience is in that kind of a situation. I am what old school used to call a change agent. I've never walked into a position and was asked to maintain the status quo. I've always been brought in after they revamped and they want somebody to take it another direction. It's a double-edged sword because it is definable by you. Because nobody really knows what we do, we are able to say, this is what it should look like. You have to be very mindful about what you want the ultimate goal of that department to be. So for me, Arlington is switching from the instructional technology coordinators being kind of tech heavy to more instructionally focused. And so I have to do a lot of work on pulling us to the instruction side and really defining what that looks like. So for me, the first year and a half, 2 years of my position is about rebranding. And that's really where you get the most bang for your buck. If they didn't define it for you, they can't tell you that it's good or bad, and you get to fail forward a lot. I would suggest that you really sit down with people that you admire and you see their work, and you talk about what things do you want to take from what they do and make the position into what you need it to be. Because you had a vision when you applied for it. If you're like me, an overachiever, like I definitely, when I get ready to interview for a job, I have like my 5-year plan of what's gonna happen before I even get like the first interview. But it is definitely just sitting down and you defining it. You know, I'm sure you're given a job description. It was very vague and generic. So I would take, one thing that I have done in that situation is I've taken out the Bloomsburgs. And I have literally taken the verbs and said, these are things that I want to be able to do. And I have made subsections under the job description. So for every line that they have on there, I put what that looks like. So then I can tell people, this is what I do.
Thank you. It's very helpful.
Are there any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
You're saying that in your current position, you are in the middle of transitioning from your position being so tech heavy to making it more curriculum based. Was that your idea? Was that your division's idea? And if it wasn't your idea, or if it was your idea, how did you convince the higher ups to let you do that?
It was not my idea. It was in this district, it was not my idea. It was the district's idea, and it really wasn't their idea. It was the fact that they finally understood that it's instructional, right? When I got to Virginia, one of the very first things I did, you can ask Jonna, because I'm sure she laughed at me. I walked into a meeting and I had printed out the Vdoe guidelines for Itrts. And I literally went step by step and what they were supposed to do, because the state mandates our jobs. Like, there's no getting around it. They tell us exactly what we're supposed to do. So job description should align to that. So then I took the district's job description and I said, this is Vdoe standard, this is ISTE standard, this is the job description, this is what it looks like. So I can go to HR and say, do you see these parts right here? They're on the job description, but they're not in our job field. They're not in our scope of work. And that really helps. Because the SOQ for Itrts and technicians is so vastly different, school districts will always fight the fight of ITCs having to do more tech work than they want to. That's where you have to find a fine line between, even if I know how to do it, do I do it? Where you feel bad because you don't want teachers to think you don't want to help them, but you also don't want to get caught in the loop of all day tech work. Because you were a teacher and you came out of the classroom, you'd still teach, just teach adults, not work on iPads. If you wanted to be a technician, you would have gotten a technician job, right? I'm hoping.
That's especially challenging this year when it's
Yeah.
all hands on deck.
On and on, yes.
I mean, that is kind of what we're living right now. It's very hard to stay in your lane and still make sure everyone's needs are being met.
And what we are doing right now is pandemic learning still. We are still in a position where our schools are not back to I hope we never go back to the way we were before the pandemic, but we are not back into actual learning good pedagogy. Like, we are still we're not in crisis mode anymore because we passed the crisis part of the pandemic, but now we're in the part where we're like, okay, we all have to come back and figure out what the new normal is. And now that we're trying to figure out what the new normal is, well, you all did all this stuff before. Can't you do it? And so it's really drawing this line in the sand and saying, the only reason we did that before is because There was no way I was gonna ask a teacher last year if I could come in and help her do instructional delivery. Not keep 4 fully aired up tires. Or not have my car keyed. So, I mean, we're still in that space. Teachers are still trying to come back and get back in the room of things. Students are still needing to be helped and supported. This year is like when you come back from Christmas break, right? You have to reteach all of your expectations. You have to go back over policies and procedures with your students. You have to say, okay, I know that we've been gone for 2 weeks. And I don't know what happened. It's just you've forgotten 9 years of education already and how we do things, but let's start over. So that's where we are. So it is a hard balance, but we do all have to be all hands on deck this year. One of the things that we're doing in Arlington right now is we are re-imaging student devices at the high school level. It is an all hands on deck thing because all of these kids who would have had their devices re-imaged last year did not because they were at home. Right? And so now we're doing extra work. So it's just different and hard, but you're still able to own who you are and what you do and how you support people.
And we have wonderful opportunities to move forward. I
Yes.
mean, from what we've learned, from what we've just all been going through, there is wonderful opportunities to take the positive and keep going with it.
Yes.
With the blended learning and the asynchronous learning experiences that we now have, teachers are starting to really understand how that works.
Yes, they are. So the next thing, to be you, this is hard. Because it's really hard to be you and keep a job, right? Because like work Amy and at home Amy are 2 different people. Work Amy is pleasant and just perky and ready to go. Home Amy is like, get somewhere and sit down. Be quiet, loud in here. My 12-year-old plays basketball in the house all the time. And then my daughter does flips while he's playing basketball, so our tree has no lights on it or any ornaments. Because I hear things like, oh, no, it's fine, it just hit the wall. So I get to go home first and work. But the BU part of it, the coping strategy is, as Dr. Seuss said, you're the you is you, right? Like, I could pretend to be a lot of people, but it does not last long. I'm one of those people, there was a thing that went out on Twitter or Facebook a while ago where it was like 10 phrases to say to see if you're a cynical person, right? My friends all send it to me because they're cynical people. And it said things like, if you can say these phrases and it sounded sincere, you were a sincere person. So it was things like, that's great. Good job. Hope that works out for you. And I was like, dang it, I can't say none of these. And I was like, so I have learned that in being me, people accept me a lot more than when I try to be something else. I am the first to admit I'm rough around the edges. John, I can tell you, okay. I want to know things, and sometimes in wanting to gain that knowledge, I don't always think about how I'm going to get it. I am very goal driven, and I tell people this, I am goal driven, and I forget that people help me get to the goal. And so I need a team of people who can tap me on the shoulder and say, they're all back there dying and you're running. And I'm like, oh, okay. Hey, y'all. Y'all was dying. I'm sorry. But they know that about me because I am goal driven. I am not people first all the time. And so I always surround myself with people who will tell me, girl, slow down. So you have to own it. And don't own it in a way of, that's just who I am. And they gonna do it. Because they will not, they will fire you, just FYI. So be authentic. You know how principals and coaches will tell you, if the kids don't believe you, they don't believe that you believe in them, if they don't believe that you care, they're not gonna do anything for you. It's the same thing as adults. If I'm not my authentic self, I can't be authentic with people. I am a hot flaming mess 90% of the time. I just package it really well. Because I am human and I am growing. And that's what I'm supposed to be. And I'm honest in that. One of the things I know about myself is I do not like to be given words of, what's the love language? I don't even remember it, the word, yes. Yeah, I'm acts of service. Words of affirmation scare me, but I frequently go to my supervisor for acceptance. I frequently go to them and say, hey, I'm gonna do this thing. What do you think about it? And now they go off. And I'm like, yeah, she accepted me. But if she was ever to come to me and be like, oh my gosh, you're doing it, because she's super soft, and I love that about her. She's like, you're doing a great job, and I'm really proud of you, and you keep going. And I'm like, she walks off, and I'm like, oh, how is she being so? Just like, get in the game, let's go. That's what I need from people. Just need people to yell at me like a coach, like a Big Ten coach, like throw a chair at me and something. Let me know I need to get it in gear. I don't think you have any questions about being you, because I can't really tell you do. Let me tell you how to be you.
So I'm just being, so how much of this is being you does not allow you to be rude. So how do you work on becoming a better you, but still be the real you?
If the real you is rude, you need to work on you. Yeah, and I can be rude. Be not deceived. I am an Alpha Kappa Alpha. We have degrees in petty. So, a little freaky here, sorry. I have learned that when I want to be rude to people, I'm not being authentic. And that's what usually stops me. I am also really good at what I am. People have called me rude. They have. And I always go back and I question, was I stern or was I rude? Well, your tone. Okay, what did my tone say? And so we can have that conversation, because typically tone is your emotional response to what I said. Now, I have changed my tone at times to be very condescending. I typically do it with my children when they ask me questions that are not smart. But I don't typically do it with adults. And I know that about myself. And so when people say, oh, you're condescending, I always go back and ask how, because I want to correct it. I'm also not mean. And a lot of people, I'm abrasive. I will use those adjectives. I'm abrasive. I am blunt. I am straight to the point. I frequently say I'm a straight shooter. You know, that's just code word for I'm gonna tell you how it is and shrug and kind of walk off. Because I know that I'm not an emotional person. So I always have to think about me being, when I present this information to somebody, what about my posture? What about my demeanor, my facial expression? Because my face tells it all. I can't play poker. I'd be like Kim Kardashian when she wore the glasses that were reflective. Bad. So typically, if I have to have crucial conversations with somebody, I wear something that's softer. I wear a softer color. I literally have a section in my closet called the crucial conversations section. Because it's more pastels. And I don't wear heels. And I typically go to their space so they feel comfortable. And so I feel uncomfortable because it's their space. So then I know that I'm more vulnerable than they are.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions? All right, I'm trying to look at the time. I'm not being like, oh my gosh, circle of trust. This one is hard for me, right? I told you all earlier that I have a group of girlfriends who keep me in check. And they do. But you have to have circles of trust at work. People that aren't necessarily your friends, because your work friends lie to you. Especially if you are being mean to somebody they also do not like. Right? So at work, you have to find people that are going to tell you if your idea is too big. Because typically when we fail because our idea does not match where we work. And so if you have this idea about what you're going to implement, and there aren't the correct systems or people in place for you to implement it, and so you fail, and you fail in such a way that you have to leave that position. Because when you make that big of a misstep, your credibility is gone. You did not read the room. So you need those people at work, those people who you can go to and say, this is my big idea, what do you think? I have people on that team that I know do not like me as a person. And the reason that I have those people on my team is because I know that they'll be most critical of my work. And sometimes they're my biggest supporters in the thing that I'm doing, but I know that it's coming from a genuine spot. We like to be very comfortable in our circle of trust of people who are gonna just rub our back and tell us we're really pretty and we're doing a good job. We have a rule in our circle that when somebody brings an idea to the group or talks about an experience that they've had, if it's bad, to say, you're really pretty. And that's our code word for, that ain't it, chief. And we will typically text each other if we're in the same space and be like, you're so pretty. And we know it's kind of just like roll back. Or one of my friends, none of us use our real names, like we don't know each other. But there's Paula, her real name is Paige. You can call her Paula, but she's an HR director, so I wouldn't do that. Then there's Sunjoy, because she goes to Chick-fil-A and calls it Arnold Palmer, and the teenagers tell her it's Sunjoy. And then we have Pina Colada. Her name is Colada, but for some odd reason, she always tells people know like Pina Colada, like Pina Colada. We're like, you could definitely break that down in so many other ways. So we frequently will look at each other or we'll text one morning and be like, you're doing a good job. Like we haven't seen each other. We don't know what's going on. But we'll just say, you're doing a good job. And that's code for today is gonna be an amazing day, maybe. So like this morning, Misty has gone above and beyond my expectations of everything this weekend. And I have a suite and so adjoining the rooms, right? And so this morning I got up at 5 o'clock so that I could work on my keynote. And as soon as I walked out of the bedroom part of the suite, the door closed and I immediately realized I had not did the deadbolt so that it would hit it, so it closed and it locked at 5 o'clock this morning. So all I have on is my pajamas.
Oh, no.
And I know that door is deadbolted and the little gold thing is over. So if they open the door, it's a security feature, right? So about for 15 minutes, I paced back and forth, like, how can I break into this door and not get like charged for it? I did use my district P card, so I mean, I'm not gonna get charged for it. So I'm like, all of my clothes are in there, but I could definitely have one of my friends bring something else to in there. Like, I don't want to call downstairs and tell them that I have to lock myself out of my room. So I finally call the front desk and the security guard comes upstairs. 5:30 this morning. He knocks on the door I'm locked out of, right? He's like banging on it, 5:30 in the morning. So I step out the other side. He says, do you know if they're in here? They're not in there, because I'm locked out. He was like, okay, but nobody's in there. If somebody was in there, I would not have locked out. Are you talking to me right now? So he says, well, can you open it from outside? So at this point, because security was coming, I have on my trench coat. And it's like, so I'm in the hotel hallway in a trench coat at Vdoe, and I'm like, oh Lord, Karen sees this. What is she? They're not gonna let me do this today. So he tries to get it open. He says, oh, you've got the security features on. Yes, because it's 5 o'clock in the morning and I was in there scared that, you know, the mass murderer was gonna come through Vdoe and just pick me at the end of this hallway. Nobody did. So he gets it unlocked and he looks at me and he says, try not to get locked out again. So I text my girl group and the responses were, you're doing a great job. It's okay. So all day today, they have texted me, it's okay. You need that in your life. You need those people that when you totally fail, they will bring you back to, it's just today. It's just this one thing. But ultimately, you have to believe that the people that are in that circle of trust have your back. And if you experience imposter syndrome like I do, that is hard. Because you are always thinking that, you're always thinking that the boogeyman is gonna jump out at any given moment. If you're like me, I'm scared to quote, turn off one light, like run to the other room because it's dark. I'm afraid of the dark a little bit, but it's okay. I won't go basements in the dark either. And my 12-year-old sleeps under his TV because of where his game sits. And I'm like, you never watch Final Destination in the shows. But you have to trust in those people. You have to trust in who they are to you. And you have to rotate them out very frequently. Because as you grow, your circle of trust should change. And there are some people, like the Petersburg Itrts, I can call them and talk to them about anything, but I also know that they'll be like, yeah, no, that's good. And then John will call me later and be like, that ain't it, chief. Even as her supervisor, she'd be like, we're not doing that. Be like, okay. Like, that's too big, we're not ready. We're not ready for that. And she was right. So you have to do that. So what questions about the circle of trust do you have? Yes, ma'am, Ms. John.
I don't necessarily have a question about the circle of trust, but I just want to assure people that sometimes when and you kind of alluded to it a few minutes ago, sometimes when it comes to that circle of trust, it may not, you know, of course, we all know that a circle of trust is something that has to be built. You know, it comes with building those relationships. And I'm the only way that I make it through being an ITRT is through relationship building. And to be honest with you, I have done more with teachers by building that relationship than I have actually done with Tech Integrate. For some reason, I'm like, everybody says, you missed your calling, you know, you should have been more like a counselor, whatever. But you have to realize what people need in that moment. You're there to do the job of tech integration, but that might not necessarily be what they need for that day. And if God willing, you get another day, that's the day you do the tech integration. But for that first day, build that relationship and build that trust with that person. Then you can go on and do more. And so I just wanted to kind of make that comment because, if you don't mind me sharing.
You can show that you don't like me when you first. met me.
Okay. Can't say it like that, but she's right about being rough around the edges, and it could have been, you know, the age between the two of us, her coming from another place, coming into the circle, you know, circle already built, me being the oldest member in that circle, or however you want to say it. But what it took was for us to have those courageous conversations that she talked about in order for her to now know that I am part of her circle of trust. And so I just want to assure people that sometimes when you first try it, or when you first try to build, it may not be exactly what you want it to be, but keep chipping away, and continue to be the you that you are. Because that's one thing about me. I'm always, sometimes it may come off as rude, but what it is passion and it's confidence. And so just keep kind of chipping away until you can build that circle of trust.
She didn't like me. I was rough. I was new to Virginia, and I had we did it this way in Texas. Not to set me straight. But, as she said, we were able to have that courageous conversation. I've had that courageous conversation with several of my circle of trust people, where I've had to sit down and listen to the hard truth about myself. And it is not always warm and fuzzy, but it has been needed. And my circle of trust includes people in HR, in tech, in finance, in the classroom, because I need all those perspectives. And as you build those circles of trust with those people in those departments, when they see that you are doing something, back to the question about how do you get a district to turn? When that circle of trust knows that I'm gonna stand on my word, and it might get messy, but it's gonna get done, I'm able to move freely. And that's all I need, is just let me move freely. Will you click the next slide, please? 2 more. Oh, okay, I didn't take that one out. So this is about Mercury and Venus. I did not teach science. Well, I did teach science once. Not very well, obviously. Or EdTech, so it's done. Thank you. Are there any questions in the chat? Oh, yeah, no, I didn't take any of them out. Congratulations. I need all of you to just tweet me, so.
You caught our attention.
I did. 315,000 people have noticed that I did not take out the template slides on my. So it's probably the one I was doing at 5 in the morning when I got off. Can't take me nowhere. It has been an absolute pleasure to talk with you all and to be able to sit in the presence of people that I think are great. These situations are not taken lightly, and from here I have gained newfound friendships and people that I will include in my circle of trust because I feel that they have my best interest at heart. Do not take your attendance at Vdoe lightly. The people that are in those blue shirts, they notice you. They notice the hard work that you do. They notice the time and the effort that you put in. And when it's time for them to make a seat at the table for you, there's nothing stopping them from doing that. Renee, I'm gonna embarrass her. Renee Mayo is one of the first diversity, equity, inclusion cohort members. She was a classroom teacher, and I had a position open in Petersburg for an ITRT, and Renee came with amazing references from Vdoe members. It only makes sense. So in that vein, Arlington Public School Systems is currently hiring instructional technology. I have several vacancies that I would love to fill with individuals who like to come to the state. I am looking for people who are passionate about students and student success, passionate about being instructional coaches and leaders, and passionate about getting the work done. If you are interested in becoming an ITC for the Arlington Public Schools, you can tweet me at techyouverymuch, or you can go on the website, apsva.us, under the careers tab. This has been a paid promotion by Arlington Public Schools. Thank you for having me. Great day.